Have you ever wondered how you could get the same blog layout as big blogs such as Neil Patel's, but without the custom coding? Then keep on watching because I'm going to show you exactly how you can get the same layout as on Neil Patel's website, but using Thrive Theme Builder. The reason I picked Neil Patel's blog is because he does a pretty good job at adding a lot of call to actions on a blog post without making it too overwhelming. And that is exactly what I will show you in this video. As you can see here, I'm on the website, and the first thing that you notice when you start scrolling is this floating call to action button. Then we can also see that in the second menu, he has this sign in here, which is also a call to action. Then we see that there is a personal call to action at the start of every blog post. And just to show you that this is not specific to this blog post, we can go to another blog post and we see that this call to action is here too. So this is something that is part of the blog template. And then when we scroll down, you'll see here the social media icons that are floating. And then if we go even further down, you notice that here now we have our sidebar that stays sticky. And then finally, we also have this call to action here at the bottom. Now, personally, I think it's a bit much to have a bar at the top and at the bottom of the screen, but I'll show you how you can do it anyways. All right, we have a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. Here I'm in the theme builder menu, and the first thing that we will do is go to our templates, and then we will create a new template. Now, it doesn't really matter which companion theme that you are using, because I will show you how you can start from scratch to build this layout. So no matter whether you're using Shapeshift, Omni, Quick, you will be able to follow this tutorial. I will call this template the call to action template. And so we want this to be for single, we want this for our post and for our standard post. Now, normally I will tell you choose one of the templates because it will be easier to start from an already designed template. But because here I want to show you how to do it step by step, we will start from scratch. Now here we have our new call to action template created, and so we can start editing it. Just remember, at this point, nothing will change on your website because no blog posts are assigned to this template, so you can go ahead and play around with this. All right, as you can see, this is a very bare minimum template, right? Nothing is designed, but we will be able to use this in order to make it look exactly the way we want it to. What is important to understand with these templates is that you have different sections. When you have your first breadcrumb selected, you will see, so if you click somewhere else, just go to your first breadcrumb, and then you will see here in the main options that you have the different sections. You can see the header section, our top section, sidebar, content, bottom, and footer. Now, understanding these sections will really help you create this template as quickly as possible. Now, let's start with our floating call to action header. We will go into the header, and then from here you have two options. You can either edit your header, but remember this will edit it everywhere on your website, so be careful when you do that. Or you can unlink it and choose a new header just for this template. But in that case, it will be unlinked from the rest of your header, so it won't update automatically anymore. The choice is up to you. Now, in this case, I'm gonna edit the header because this is a test website and there's no problem me editing the header. But like I said, be careful because this will change everywhere on your website the moment you start editing this. Now, on Neil Patel's website, you can see that this is a call to action for his special tool. So most of you, I assume, won't have a tool that you are promoting. So what we will do here is make it a call to action for a lead generation form. Let's simply delete our custom menu that we have here, and then we can start from scratch. So what I'll do is I'll first add a lead generation form in here. So let's search for lead generation and then drag it into our header. Now what we're looking for is an opt-in form, and then I will go with one of the horizontal opt-in forms. In this case, you can see that our main color is the color of the website, which in this case is yellow, but of course we can change all of that. In order to change this color, you can go into the main options, click on the color. And as you can see here, at the moment, this is linked to your theme colors. But if you don't want to do that and you want to change it to some other color, you can unlink it. And this will give you the opportunity to change the color immediately. Now we want to make sure that people know why they should sign up on this opt-in form. So let's add some text in front of this form. Just drag it next to it and this will create a column layout. Now, first of all, I will remove the line spacing underneath this text element, and then I will use the column settings. So I'll select the columns element, and in the main options here, I will set the vertical positioning to be center aligned. This allows me to have this nice alignment between the two elements because they're both in the middle of this vertical positioning. Now let's make these spacing a little bit less, because at the moment we still have quite a bit of spacing around the element. So in our layout and positioning, in our column element, we can remove this. So I'm removing the margins and the padding. And then let's see, on our form element, we also have quite a bit. So I'll make this maybe 10. And so now we have this small bar on top of our blog post, and that is exactly what we're looking for. One thing that we want to do is to make sure that this is sticky. So let's select our header, and then in our scroll behavior, let's make this sticky. For the moment, I'll keep it on all of the devices. So click on done. And now in our preview, we can already see what's happening. So we have this sticky bar here, and when we scroll, it stays on top. So that was the first thing that we were trying to accomplish. Now let's go to our menu element where we have a call to action in that menu. The trick here is to use the top section. So because the header section will stay sticky, if we add anything to the header, this will also become sticky. But as you can see here, this second bar, the orange bar, is not staying sticky. So we want to use our top section for this. Let's select our top section. At the moment, we have our breadcrumbs in here. And I could delete this element, but I know that I will need it in my blog post later. So I'll simply take this breadcrumbs element, and for the moment, I'll drag it here underneath the title of my blog post. And then we'll see how to edit it later. So now the top section is completely empty. And we will need to do some adjustments to make sure that this top section has a full width. So at the moment, if we add our color in there, so in our background style, let's add a color. And so rather than copying the yellow from the website, I will use this electric violet as my main color. So let's apply this. You can see now that this header section is not going full width. So this is not what we're trying to accomplish, right? What we want to do is go into our top section, make sure the top section is selected. And then you can see here that it will, we have an option that says stretch the background to full width. So when you do that, you can see that now this background section and the background color will fill up the whole screen. And that's exactly what we want here. Now, you can also see that it says inherent to content size from the layout. And that is exactly what we want, because we want to make sure that the elements that we add inside this top section are still the same width as the rest of the content on our page. So we don't want that to go full width. We want that to stay within the width of our page. Now let's add our elements in here. So as we can see, we have a logo, and then we have a menu, and we have this call to action button. So when I go into my elements, I will add a logo element, drag it in here, and then you'll be able to choose from the logos that you have available on your website, or you can add a new logo specifically for this layout. So I'll go with this logo, and then I'll add a custom menu next to it. So again, once you drop things next to each other, it creates columns. So let's go with the standard drop-down menu. We don't need a mega menu for this. And then just go with the basic one. So now, as you can see, we have a menu in here, and we can start customizing it. So first, it's really helpful to understand the breadcrumbs. So I will click inside this menu item, and thank you for reminding me to save, so I'll quickly save my work. All right, so clicking inside the menu item, I can see that now I have this menu item breadcrumb. And then again, when we select the custom menu breadcrumb, it will select the whole custom menu. So when I go in here, in the menu items, I can go to my typography and change this to white. And then I also want this to not be bold. And now if I want to change the actual names on the menu, I have two options. I can either select this and start typing, or I can go back into my custom menu, and then here you can see the different menu items. And so from here, it's really easy to then add the right link to this. So you will type the text that you want to show, and then you will add the link on your website where you want this menu to go. So I don't need this submenus. And then here, let's say, for example, contact, about. And like I said, here I would search for the about page. Let's see, yes, we have an about page here. And then when you apply, now this links to the right page. And then for our last button, we can say something like sign up. And then you can link this to your landing page, or you can even attach a lightbox to it. But in this case, we would send it to a landing page and then apply. And the most important thing that I want to show you here is how you can edit it so that this menu item looks like a button. So when you click on this menu item, you see this lock icon here. This means that group styling is activated. Usually that's exactly what you want. You want to make sure that, like I did in the beginning, changing the color of the font or changing from bold or changing the font from bold to not bold, you want that to apply to every item in this menu. But you can also style the different items separately. So for that, you would unlock this, you would click on this little green lock. It becomes red, so this now means that it is unlocked. And at that point, you're able to change just this menu item. So we could add a background style to this. Let's maybe add our yellow, apply. And then I want to add a shadow, so a drop shadow to make it lift a little bit more. All right. And I'm also going to change the text here because now the white isn't ideal. So I'll make this dark. All right. And then I can actually lock this back up so that if I do things like changing the size of the font, then it would change again on this item too. So let's lock this back. Now I want this menu, the positioning of this menu, I want to change it to be right aligned. And then I'm going to make sure to make this a little bit smaller again. So clicking on our columns, again, if you want to use your breadcrumbs, you can do that. Click on any element and then click on the columns. And as we can see here, we have quite a bit of padding, which isn't really necessary for this. And then here around, I also have, I'm going to make this 10. And on the custom menu, let's see, yes, we'll also make this 10. All right, so now we have this small bar with our menu. And one thing that I will do here is also in the columns, in the main options, the vertical positioning, I will add this nicely in the center so that, again, our menu and our logo are nicely lined up. All right, let's save this. And let's preview to see how far we've gotten. All right, we have our first scrolling. So our sticky header with our call to action. And then we have our menu with our call to action button right there. All right, now it's time to work on our content. So first of all here, let's select this content container. And let's make this 1200 width. So and then we'll go into our sidebar. And the positioning of the sidebar is on the right. So with the sidebar selected, the sidebar section selected, I can choose position and then make this right. So now already we have our sidebar on the right and we have our content on the left. Now let's have a look what the next steps are. So here, as you can see, we have this personal call to action, I call it. It looks a little bit like a testimonial or something like that. And we will be able to create that make it on top of each one of our blog posts. Now, because we want it on top of every blog post, we're going to add it to our theme builder template. So for here, we'll first add an image. We could add the author image, in which case this would change depending on who's the author of the post. So that could be cool. In this case, because for Neil Patel, it's really like this personal branding element in the blog. It's a static image, and so we can just drag an image in here, choose a static image, and then make it smaller. And to make it round, you can go into borders and corners and then just up the borders and corners here. As you can see, it's not 100% round. So what I'll do is I'll play around with this a little bit to make it a circle. Now, if you add a square image here, then you will have a perfect circle immediately doing this, but this wasn't a perfectly square image. So as you can see, you can use the handles and then you can drag the image to be exactly the way you want it to. So that's really easy to do. And then let's make this a little bit smaller again. And now we have this this content box next to it. So we have this light gray box with the text in it. So for that, what I'll do is I'll add a content box. So let's search for content. And then this content box, drag it next to here. Again, this will create our columns. And change our column size. Now we can adapt our image again. All right. And then give this a background color. So in our background style, add a layer, add a solid color layer. And then here we'll go to a really, really light gray. Set my opacity to 100, first of all. And then I'll choose, let's choose this one. All right, now we can add the text in there. So I'll just copy the text from here. Of course, don't do that. Use your own call to actions. But let's add the text. So we can add a text element in here, or you can actually just click and this will create a text element. So copy, and then we can still style this. So if this is in the way, just drag it. Let's make this bold. And then in the text element, we can go into our main options, remove the line spacing so that it's nicely in the center of this content box. And then we want to have this pointy thing here so that it looks like a bit like a speech bubble. So for that, let's go into our decorations. Let's select this side of the content box and let's add a pointer to there. Now let's make it a bit wider. All right, now as you can see, the text and the pointer overlap, so that's not what we want. So for this, with our content box selected, we can go into layouts and we can change the padding so that the text stays nicely within this box. All right, on our column element, let's go back to our vertical positioning and let's center this. This is usually, if you have two elements, it's always good to do so that it will stay the way you want it to. And then we have this little divider here before we get the title of the post and the breadcrumbs. So let's also add this little divider. Drag it on the page. Let's change the color. Let's make this maybe 2 pixels instead of 3. And then in our layout and positioning, the max width for this, I would probably make this like, I don't know, maybe 50. All right. Let's save this. and let's see. Okay, so far we already have our sticky call to action, we have our header bar here with the menu and the button, and then we have this image here, or this personal call to action that will be available above every blog post. All right, now it's time to style the actual content. Now, the thing to understand here, and that is really, really important, is that we are styling a template. So it doesn't really matter what the text say on this title, because every blog post will have a different title, right? So what we don't want to do is we don't want to add elements that we don't want to be everywhere on every blog post. And that is just once you understand that you're working on a template, it's really easy, but it can get a little bit confusing, or sometimes when you're working on this, it's easy to forget that you're working on a template. So let's keep that in mind. So what we'll want to do here for the post title, let's just change this typography, make it a little smaller. And then let's look. So we have our title, and then we have breadcrumbs, then we have our featured image. So for this, let's go back. We have our title, we have our breadcrumbs element. So what I'll do here is I'll also change the size a little bit, make this smaller, and then let's use a character. We have these dashes in between, that's okay, and a little bit less space in between. All right, and then we have our featured image already, so this can stay. And then here, as you can see, we have this metadata. Now in our in the blog post that we're trying to copy, there is no metadata, so you can select these and then you can delete it. Now, the easiest way is just to select everything, so the whole columns, and then we can delete these columns, which will delete everything. Then we have the content of our blog post, and then let's see at the end of a blog post what's at the end of a blog post. We have this sharing icons again, and then we have the comments section. All right. So at the end of our blog post, as you can see here, at the moment we have an about the author section. It doesn't seem like we need that, so I'm selecting this and just deleting it. We already have our columns. We already have like this divider. So because here the social icons are in between two dividers, so you can see like these little lines. That's exactly what I'll do here. So let's go back to our editor and then copy this divider, and then in between we will use our share, so social share element. Let's drag this in here, and then we can choose from some different styles that are available here. And you can choose which networks you want to use. So in this case, we have Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. All right. And it's actually only the icon. And then we want to have the word share in front of this. So for this, let's add a text element, drag it in front, share. And then remember to get these on the same lines. Let's go into our columns, vertical positioning. Let's drag this a bit closer. All right. And then because we have this spacing here in our text element, we can delete the spacing to get this right alignment. Now, let's get our dividers a bit closer to everything. So I'm removing the margins and paddings around the column element here, and also from our actual divider. And if we want, we can make it even closer. So on our social share, we still have some extra margins. All right, let's save this. So now that our actual content is laid out the way we want it to, we can start working on our sidebar. Now from here, let's select anything in here and then choose for the content wrapper. Because one thing that we want to do is we want to have a little bit more space between the sidebar and the content. So I will change the gutter width to 100 pixels. And I will also make this sidebar a little wider and the content a little smaller. All right, let's see. Yes, this looks more like what we're going for here. Now you could choose from a ready-made design, which will give you the designs that are available within your theme, and you can start from there, or you can continue building this from scratch. So let's have a look. The first thing that we want is like this gray box, and then with a new call to action in there. So for that, when I see a gray box like that, I always think content box. So that's the first thing that will drop in the sidebar. Let's change our background style to this gray color. It's the same gray color from this one. And then we'll add a little divider in there. In our main color. And we have a text element. So that would be for our title. So here we can choose, make this a heading. Let's center align all the text in this content box. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting the content box, and then in our typography, we will choose the alignment and make this center aligned. Now this will allow for every text element that I drop in there to be center aligned, rather than having to adjust this for every text element. So now we add an extra text. So this would be our paragraph, and then we would have our lead generation element in there. So this time let's go for a vertical one. And let's change our text, our button. Of course, you want to make sure that this element is connected. So for that, you would add a connection and then choose from the available API connections that you have on your website already. Now, if you want to edit this element even more, you can go into the edit forms, and then you can go in and select every single item in here. And so let's say that maybe this one, we want it a little bit darker so that it stands out. All right. So now we have our first element here. Let's have a look. What other elements do we have? Here is our about the author section. So what we can do is we can copy this content box. So make sure that the content box is selected, and then use this copy button. And then from here, we could add our author image, or we could have a static image again. So let's add a static image in this case. And then you'd have some text. So all of this, pretty easy to do. Simply add the elements that you want in your sidebar. We also have a search element. So as you can see here, we already have a search element in there. If that's not there anymore, you deleted it, just look for the search element and then you can drop it in your sidebar. And of course, we also have templates available for this search element. So when you click on it, you can go to default to templates here, and then you can change it to a template that you like more. So let's change this template. Now, one thing I want to show you that I thought was pretty cool here is this element. So with the guides and then specific content for agency, but of course you can use this to highlight any content you want. The way to do this would be to add a tabs element in your sidebar. So let's choose the tabs element and then drag it on here. And then pick one that's fairly simple. So let's add this one. And in our tabs and our main options, we can change the color So our accent, let's make it our theme color here. And then at the moment we have 3 tabs. Now, obviously the space is a bit limited in our sidebar, so we want to make sure that we don't overdo it here. So for that, let's go into our edit tabs elements, and then we can delete one of these. So now we just have 2 tabs. And then when you're inside your tab element, as you can see here, we have these columns layout, so we can delete the content that we have inside here because we don't need it. And we can add something like our post list. So adding a post list in here will allow you to have the posts on your website that you want to highlight or the pages that you want to highlight in a stylized manner. So one of the things that you can do is, as you can see, we have so many templates available, and you want to make sure that you pick one of the narrow templates because those are designed specifically to go into a sidebar. So let's go with this narrow one here. And then as you can see now, this pulls my latest blog post, but of course I can filter this and then decide to show specific categories, for example. So we can do this based on categories, and then you can add which category to show. So this is how you can use the tabs element combined with the post list element to get this really cool layout here in your sidebar. Now for the second tab, if you want to change this, click on it and this will give you the content. Again, we can delete what's already inside there. That's just dummy content, so we don't need it. And then you can repeat the steps and just add whatever you want in here. Now, remember, you can really add whatever you want in the tabs element. So if you want an image, if you want whatever, it's up to you. All right, once you like it, let's click on done. And then finally, what I wanted to show you in this sidebar is how to have an element like this one that stays sticky. So for this, I'm simply going to copy the one I have here. And then I'll drag it, put it underneath the things that we have. Now here, this is content that was already in there, so we can just click on it and then delete whatever we don't want. And now on this element, I'm gonna click on the content box, and in the scroll behavior, I'm gonna make this sticky. Now, I'm not gonna edit this just yet because I wanna show you what happens. And then I'll show you how to correct it. So let's save this. And now let's preview. So now we have our sticky top bar here, and then we have our nicely designed sidebar. And then once we get to this one here, as you can see, it says sticky, so it does what we want it to do, but it is hidden underneath this top bar because we have a sticky element and then we have a sticky element that we say to be sticky from the top. So here, stick to the screen, it says to the top. That will overlap. So I'm going to show you how you can correct this. So you could either eyeball this or you can use your inspect tool. So if you click right, you have inspect here, then you could go up here and in compute it, you can see that this element is 101 pixels height. Now, this is the amount that we need to offset this sidebar element here in order for it not to overlap. So let's do this right now. It sounds way more complicated than it is. So here with our element selected, what we want to do is stick to the top, but the distance from the top screen, we want it to be, let's say 110 pixels. And then we want it to be sticky until the end of the parent container, because that will allow for it not to go over the bottom section and the footer section. So let's save this now. And let's see what happens when we reload. All right, so on the top of our page, let's start scrolling. And then when we arrive at this element, now you can see that it stays nicely underneath our top bar. So that is exactly what we want. And here, as you can see, it hits the footer and then it stops scrolling. All right, now the last thing that I want to show you is how to get the floating social media icons. So for that, we need a little hack because we're first going to add a content box. And let's add this here above our title. And then we're gonna add our social share icons in here. So make sure to choose the social share, not the social follow. And we can make it vertical. And then let's take this icons only. And now we need to make sure that this element is both placed next to our content and that it is sticky on scroll. So for that, with our content box selected, let's go into layout and positioning. And then from here, change our, in our advanced settings, change this to absolute. So what happens now is that the moment that you change your settings to be absolute, it means that now you can move this element around on the page without any of the other elements being affected by it. So as you can see now, it's kind of like on top of the other elements. So then we want to use our positioning here to position it exactly the way we want it to. Now, one thing to understand with absolute positioning is that you will change the positioning based on the container around it. So in this case, our content area is the container around this content box. And so we set to show it in the top left corner to start with. And now we're gonna adjust it from that top left corner. So from here, I will change the margins on the left so that it goes next to our element. And then from the top, we wanted to show about maybe like here. So in that case, let's go down like 600. Let's see. All right. And then from there, we want it to be sticky. So on our scroll behavior, let's make it sticky. And first, let's see what happens before changing any of this. So save our work, go into our preview, let's reload. All right. So now we have our social media icons here, so that works. And again, as you can see, we will need to offset this from the top because of our scrolling bar here. Make sure your content box is selected and then add your distance in here. So then when we reload this, now, as you can see, the social icons stay nicely underneath our bar. Now there's one more call to action, which is the bottom bar on Neil Patel's blog. And for this, we would use Thrive Lead. Because Thrive Leads allows you to add ribbons on the bottom and on the top of your blog posts. Now, I did a full tutorial on how to use transparent images in your opt-in forms and how you can get that effect of your image popping out of your opt-in form. So check out that one if you want to get that ribbon with a transparent image on your blog posts. Now, with our layout done on desktop, it's always good to check how things look on mobile. So we will do that right now. For this, let's go to our tablet view. And let's see what this looks like. And then we'll also go to our mobile view and see what we can change there. So first of all, there are a couple of things that we can change. So in our tablet view, let's start with that because everything that you do in tablet view will trickle down in your mobile view. So for this, in our top section in layout and positioning, I would add padding to our section so that our logo and our menu here are nicely centered. We can also select this because now our menu became a hamburger menu. Now this is probably what we want on mobile anyways, but we can change the icon color to make this icon color white. And then let's see our text inside. We need to make sure that that is black. All right. Then we have our sidebar and our content. So this is up to you to decide whether you want on tablet to still show this. I'll probably correct this on mobile, to be honest. So we have our bar here. And then, as you can see, the text sticks to the bottom, sticks to the side here really, really closely. So we definitely want to add some padding to this area. So in layout and positioning, let's add padding to make sure that this looks good. That is much better. Here we can correct the column width. All right, and then in our content wrapper, let's change our gutter width because now 100 pixels is really too much. So let's maybe change this to like 20. All right, on other elements, so maybe now like this tabs element becomes really too crowded. So what you can do is you can click on the certain elements and then you can still in your responsiveness decide to hide this on specific views. So in this case, we would hide it on tablet and on mobile and only keep this element on desktop. Now let's see in our mobile view. Now, as you can see here on mobile, this header section takes up a lot of space and probably this is not what you want on your mobile view. So what we will do for that is go to desktop, in your header, select your header, then go into edit. And from here we can go into our responsive view and we can hide this whole header on mobile view. So now when we go back to our mobile view, this header is not shown anymore. I hope you liked this tutorial and that it shows you how flexible Thrive Theme Builder is to create anything that you see online without needing any custom coding. Now, if you haven't already, check out Thrive Suite because that includes all the tools that I used in this tutorial. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. And if you are an online entrepreneur, click subscribe, click that bell so that you're notified when we publish new videos.